back design, obviously with some new twists and turns in there. That kind of pays a little bit of homage to the racer. So we think we've kind of hit the nail on the head with a great ride that sort of integrates both of those. So again, we get to walk the site, and by the time I get back to my office, we ask for a drawing like this. This is called a topography drawing. And so what this is actually a real-life survey of what the land looks like that the park wants to put Mystic Timbers. And if you look at this, you can see the train track that goes around the outside. You've got the lagoon that actually feeds all the water for Whitewater Canyon. You can see Whitewater Canyon kind of trickles around in there. So this is really our starting point. After we've walked the site and we get an understanding of where the park wants the station and the transfer building, then we kind of go to the drawing board. We take this drawing and really turn it into something that you can visualize. And so this was kind of a first pass at a layout. You can see it's very, very similar. And so if you really looked at some of the first layouts of Mystic Timbers, they're very, very similar to what you see today. Of course, we wanted that swooping first drop, right? We wanted to jump over the lagoon, jump over Whitewater Canyon, and have the station and transfer realistically sit exactly where they're at today. And so this you can see, and at first glance you would say that is Mystic Timbers as it is, but there's a few things that were different on this ride, and kind of this top-down view shows that thing. So as we get through with kind of the first initial layouts of a ride, what we'll actually do is we'll kind of put those together in a nice drawing package. Some of these drawings that you see here, and we'll actually bring those back to the park. And we'll actually have meetings with some executives here at Kings Island and some meetings with the executives at the overall Cedar Fair park chain, and really start to dial in some of what the layout does. To say, okay, you know, it would be neater if we made the turn here. It'd be cooler if we switched directions here. And so, of course, the meetings, the notes, and the revisions, that's kind of the next big full stage of the process. What's neat about this is you can kind of see a bunch of hand notes and hand sketches on here. This was actually kind of one of the passes, almost the final pass of what you have today with Mystic Timbers. And you can see there's different notes on here that call about, you know, a proposed tunnel and jumping over Whitewater Canyon and so on and so forth. So this is kind of the fun iterative process where everybody gets to add a little bit of input from Great Coasters, from Kings Island, and so on and so forth. And everybody gets to say, okay, cool, we've really got the perfect product, and that's what you guys get to experience today. And so, of course, here's kind of the final layout of Mystic Timbers. This is what we get to use AutoCAD for. And we've actually created some different programs that will actually create these layouts for us kind of from the ground up. So as we're kind of wrapping up the final concepts, we actually go into full design of the structure, right? As you can see, there's a lot of structure that goes into a wood coaster, and all that has to be designed and drawn by hand. And so a bunch of my colleagues in the office actually go through and detail up every single board that's on a ride to say, here's where the boards are going to go, here's where the holes are going to be drilled, and everything gets drilled out. Now, what a lot of people don't know is with a wood coaster, with something like, with a steel coaster like Diamondback, a lot of that, 100% of the ride actually gets fabricated in the shop. And so for a ride like Diamondback, a ride like Banshee, those were fabricated in a shop over in Batavia that just coincidentally happens to make steel track for B&M. With a wood coaster, we build 100% of that ride here on site. And so we basically get bundles of lumber that our guys rip apart, look at the drawings, and actually build from the ground up. While we're going through some of that final design phase of this, the park's actually coming up with some really cool concepts and some really cool concept development. And that's kind of when we get keyed in on the name of a ride and the theme of a ride, right? We went through a bunch of iterations, and we knew a wood coaster was going to be out here. We were code-naming it Ridge Rider at the time. But when we finally get a final layout, we'll actually come back to the park and we get to see really cool concepts like this. And they'll say, okay, you know, we want to call the ride Mystic Timbers. We want to theme to a shed, what's in the shed. And it's really cool to be able to see that whole project come together from all different parties that are involved. So of course, you know, once the designs are wrapped up and the concepts are all together, we actually start to come on site. And so that's when the clearing of the site actually starts to happen. And the park will take survey information from the drawings that we put together, and they'll actually start clearing out trees, they'll start moving buildings. You know, you've got some infrastructure construction that had to happen. The Whitewater Canyon queue had to be rerouted, and also the funnel cake building had to be moved. And so that's typically when you guys kind of get keyed in and you start seeing signs come up around the park that tease and say, watch for falling trees, what's in the shed. And so that's the exciting part, right? That's what the park wants to do. They want to kind of, you know, build and get some anticipation going as to what's coming next. And there's a lot of really great guesses out there to what could come next. And so, of course, we continue with site prep and putting survey markers up. And once we get ourselves to a good point, the park's ready to make a major announcement. And that's kind of when the wait for everybody comes to an end for the most part. So, of course, everybody got to show up on site and see kind of the announcement for what's in the shed and Mystic Timbers. And that was really exciting. And that's when they start to take different concepts art and things of that nature to give you guys a great idea of really what the ride's going to do. So once we're kind of through that process, the site construction goes into full swing, and that's really when the foundations and the infrastructure for the ride are done. A lot of people don't think the foundations are important, but the foundations are super, super critical, and it's something that is below ground that really supports and holds the ride in place. So again, I'm just going to flip through a couple more pictures here. We've got some neat construction sites here and construction photos. Of course, the park put up the webcam and got some cool pictures of that. And to kind of be able to see, the ride go from foundations that were in the ground over the lagoon to what you guys see today is really, really, it's a neat thing to be able to kind of see come to life, because you're actually seeing a roller coaster more or less come to life. And so, of course, we've got steel in place, we've got foundations in place. This is just some photos of the ride as it crosses the lagoon and crosses over the Whitewater Canyon ride a few different times. What I always say is, the good thing is being an engineer in my office, my job is typically an office job, but we've got carpenters that come out here and live on site for 8 to 10 months every year and deal with every element there is, right? So they're out here in the snow, they're out here in the rain, just so you guys can all come out here and ride this ride. And hats off to those guys, because they really do things that I don't think I could come out here and be in the snow, through the entire winter doing this. And then, of course, we've got the shed that's coming to life, some great aerial photos of the ride, and kind of just seeing really the ride, come to life. And then, of course, the kind of then and now shots, and to be able to look back at some of those site prep pictures I showed you guys in the beginning of this process and really look at it now and where the ride is and seeing the ride running with, all you patrons getting to ride the ride and having a great time. It's really a great thing to kind of really see a project come full circle, more or less. And of course, the finished product, that's really what we're all about, getting to the finished product. One of the fun parts of my job is kind of once we get ourselves to the finished product, that month and a half before the park opens in April, I was up here every day myself just helping our team and actually kind of spearheading the commissioning of the ride, which is kind of the opening of the ride. And that's always the fun part, right? That's the part where we get to kind of ride it first. We get to put the water dummies in, let the water dummies ride around, put those accelerometers in that I told you guys about before, and kind of get all those little parts and pieces dialed into the project. And so that's always kind of a neat thing, coming around. That's kind of really the whole circle of building a wood coaster. One thing I do want to key on, like I had started with, I'm from the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area, and I've always wanted to build and design roller coasters. With just a project like this, with Mystic Timbers, you've got engineers, you've got carpenters, you've got project managers, you've got finance people, you've got park operations. You've got so many different facets and so many different jobs that everybody can be involved in. And, despite, if you guys learned something about conservation of energy and G-force, I'm hoping you did. But the one thing I hope everybody takes away today is you guys can all do whatever you want to do in life, right? If you guys are in school right now and you guys want to be astronauts, you want to be roller coaster engineers, you want to be carpenters, whatever you want to do it. Because the only person that can stop you guys are yourselves. And I'm proof of that just being here in front of you guys, because I was in those seats with you guys just a few years ago. So that's pretty much all I got. I know Mackenzie's going to take some questions, so if you guys have any questions about G-forces, science, mathematics, Mystic Timbers, wooden roller coasters, raise your hand and we will take those now.
Hey guys, as Adam said, we will start with questions, so raise your hand. I'm kind of over here, so we'll start here and work through the middle and end up on the right side of the stage. Anyone near me have questions? That was perfect.
What degree did you say you had again?